Hey, it's AAA. We just finished an episode of Dungeon Rollers, which if you've not been watching, you should. There's a link to that down in the description. Today I wanted to do something fun, and also D&D themed. We're going to be ranking every D&D cantrip on a tier list, by tier list maker, by how useful it would be in real life. I thought this would be a cool idea. I saw some people discussing, what would be the best D&D spells on TikTok. It made me realize I didn't see a single one of these, like an actual proper tier list covering them all. So I'm going to cover all of the published 5e cantrips. I am just real quick. Can I change the... I don't have a way to change the category on my phone. Dungeons & Dragons is still technically correct, so I'm going to leave it. We have our categories. We have useful every day. We have useful most days, useful some days, rarely useful, only in emergencies, and murder. Down here we'll go the cantrips that are only capable of murder. Probably gonna, your Eldritch Blasts, your Sacred Flames, your Firebolts. They're gonna probably end up down here, but I will still rank them. I would like to start with Minor Illusion. I love Minor Illusion. It's one of my favorite D&D cantrips. I put it on almost every character where I can. However, in real life, it does not fit in this tier. For this, I do have the D&D Wikidot up. For reference, we're going to be going off the raw of the spells. So for Minor Illusion, you can create a sound or image of an object that lasts for a minute that is fake. How useful is a minor illusion of a sound or an object in real life? You will mostly just be doing this for sounds, because that's the most use you could get out of it. Like, say there's a song you can't remember, play it with Minor Illusion. Say there's a voice you can't quite replicate, play it with Minor Illusion. I don't think it's good enough to be useful every day, or most days, but I think it is a very strong contender in the useful some days category. Because being able to perfectly replicate a sound or an object to show someone what something looks like an idea in your head, things like that, could be great for that. But the fact it doesn't last long and it's not real in any sense of the word real, only useful most some days. Vicious Mockery, murder. It's good in that it doesn't do a lot of damage and limits the opponent, so you could argue only in emergencies. However, the average commoner doesn't have much health, and this will always deal, provided you're level 1 spellcaster, between 1 and 4 damage. It might not kill them outright. So, I gotta decide, is that a weak enough attack to go in only in emergencies? You'd hurt them and inhibit what they do to you next. I think for now, it goes in only emergencies, because it's so low damage. Acid Splash, literally just murder. That's it. It can only murder. Shape Water. I love Shape Water. You've probably seen Zilk do lots of Shape Water shenanigans. It's not a murder. Better than most emergencies. But what can Shape Water really do at the end of the day for you, a normal person? Honestly, it's not a lot. Move water around. Okay. Make it make shapes or animate for an hour. That could look cool, but that's about it. Change those watercolor or opacity? I can't pronounce that word. Not very useful. Make it instantaneously freeze? That's useful. And you can combine these together. I still think this is just a useful some days. A little bit worse than Minor Illusion. I don't think most days you need to freeze water instantly or have dancing water at your will. So, in some days, it goes. Firebolt is murder, but I would argue it's a better murder than Acid Splash, because you can just bang 1 to 10 fire damage, super long range. Acid Splash is not very reliable. It's a little better. Shillelagh. This goes in only in emergencies. I would say below Vicious Mockery. Mostly because I'm someone who walks with a cane. And since this is based on me personally, I could get more use out of Shillelagh. If I need to break something with my cane, boom, cast Shillelagh. It's now magically enforced. I can break open a door. Shillelagh to magically enforce it. I can, hit someone in self-defense. Because it's a melee attack, I can specify it not to kill. So it's not a murder, but I still think it only goes in emergencies. I will put it slightly higher than Vicious Mockery for me personally, but if you don't walk with a wooden cane like I do, Shillelagh would be at the very end of this list. Friends. Friends seems great until you read it. Friends has this nasty bit at the end. When the spell ends, the creature realizes you used magic to influence its mood and becomes hostile towards you. So, this goes into the bottom of only in emergencies, because it's terrible. Or you know what, I'll put it in rarely useful. Because if you're, like, encountering people in day-to-day, it might not be the end of the world. Because it does say, another creature might seek retribution in other ways depending on the nature of your interaction with it. So they might not necessarily want to kill you, but they might. A creature prone to violence might attack you. It's just so bad that I don't think anything will make it more rarely useful than Friends. But I think you could find more uses of it than only in emergencies. Say, like, you feel like you're getting ripped off at a car dealership. You could Friends, find out for sure if you're getting ripped off or not. I would argue that's not an emergency, but that's still rarely useful. Guidance. Top of the tier. It's really hard to see that. I don't have a way to make that more visible. Guidance is S tier. Useful every day. It makes any skill check you do, which is anything that's not, hurting somebody, so like writing a book, in my case, editing a YouTube video, playing a game, talking to somebody. I could be using guidance on myself every minute, or not even every minute. I can concentrate it up to a minute to wait with just verbal and semantic components. So if I'm waving my hands around and talking with guidance, I can keep guidancing myself to slightly improve everything I'm doing. But that's the thing. It only slightly improves everything you're already doing. So you will see some things probably pass this up, but it is still definitely a useful everyday cantrip. Infestation. Murder. I'm ranking it above Acid Splash for one reason. You could use Infestation on somebody, and there's a chance you could get away with the murder. Because if you look at Infestation... Where's Infestation? It's alphabetical. I should know where it is. Here it is. You cause a cloud of fleas, mites, and other parasites to appear momentarily on a creature within range. Then they take damage and move around, as if they're being attacked by the bugs. So Infestation could be used to defend yourself or hurt somebody in a way that's not necessarily linkable back to you, because they got killed by a swarm of bugs. That might make it better than Firebolt. Firebolt, you'll kill them for sure, but Infestation, you might just get away with it. Frostbite. I do believe Frostbite is worded differently than this. I don't think Frostbite has that kind of get away with it. Yeah, no. It's... Actually, you cause Numbing Frost to form on one creature you can see within range. You make someone freeze to death, basically. That's worse than Infestation, but I'd argue it's better than Firebolt, because again, you're more likely to get away with that. Did I expect this to be talking about ways to get away with murder? Nope. Acid Splash, I believe it specifies you throw. Like, yeah, you hurl a bubble of acid. It's hard to get away with that one. Mage Hand, useful every day, above Guidance. Mage Hand is telekinesis. That's what it is. It's baby's telekinesis. You have a hand that you conjure that does things for you. It lasts for a minute, doesn't need concentration, which we don't know how concentration would work on a real person. You can use it to manipulate objects, open and close doors, stow and retrieve items, pour out contents. Can't lift more than 10 pounds, which is fine. Can't attack, which doesn't matter. I think that's better than just being slightly better at everything else, is having access to a power no one else has, a third floating arm that's 30 feet long. Gust is interesting, because Gust in 5e is one of the worst cantrips. However, you can make this work in real life for stuff. You can push a medium or smaller creature 5 feet away from you. That's neat. Within 30 feet of you, you can push someone 5 feet away. That could be useful in emergency to push them back. If you get really good at it, you create a small blast of air capable of moving one object that is neither held nor carried. It's pushed up to 10 feet away. Doesn't cause enough force to cause damage. Or you can create a breeze to cool yourself off. That's useful. Or your clothing to ripple in a breeze. That could cool you off. I think this one, create a small blast of air capable of moving an object. With time, you could get good enough with this to make, you wouldn't have mage hand level of control. But you could kind of move things around if you needed to. But I think this last part, being able to stay cool whenever you need to, is useful enough. Do you put it in useful some days? I overheat a lot, so for me, Gust would be useful most days. To just, boom, I'm cool. You could also do this on other people. Boom, you're all cool. But because of, it's only warm half the year, I'm going to move it down here, above Shape Water, under Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion might end up to move useful most days. I haven't decided. It seems very good for its tier, I do agree. Mending. Useful most days, but excellent. It's not that often that things break, at least in my life, but you can fix any non-magical item, provided that the tear or break is no longer than 1 foot in any diameter. But it's worth noting, you can use it multiple times. So you can slowly make it more and more together. This basically gives you a job in and of itself of being an amazing mechanic. Repairs breaks or tears. You could save tons of money with this. I think it's only useful most days because you don't have to fix things every day unless it's your job. Green Flame Blade. Boop. You need to be wielding a weapon for Green Flame Blade, which already puts it near the bottom. Because if you have a sword, stab them with a sword. If you have a knife, stab them with a knife. When it comes to people, Green Flame Blade will not be making you any better. Magic Stone. Magic Stone is interesting. Because you imbue pebbles with magic, you throw them, and they hit harder. That doesn't really help in real life very much. Magic Stone is going slightly above Green Flame Blade. Green Flame Blade is bad because as a person, you will never need a fiery blade. That also just hits someone else, which makes it even worse. But Magic Stone is bad. Not acid, it's not Green Flame Blade bad, but it's bad. Produce Flame. This one is going only in emergencies, above Vicious Mockery, and I'll tell you why. Produce Flame is worded a very special way that I find interesting, and I like to take advantage of. The flame remains there for the duration and harms neither you nor your equipment. This is a flame you can conjure in your hand that doesn't hurt you or your clothes. You don't catch on fire. It's a flame you can just hold in your hand. You could, learn to juggle it and have, a cool street, sideshow act. You can attack with it, sure, but it's just so much better if you don't. You have a flickering flame in your hand for 10 minutes at a time. That's great. It's not super useful in your day-to-day life, but actually, I'll put it up here. Rarely useful. If you need light, you've got light. Light will go above it, I'll tell you that. Light's gonna go above it, and because it's, at the end of the day, it's a fire. It does hurt other people and other things, presumably, but it just doesn't hurt you. Shocking Grasp. It's better than Acid Splash, worse than Firebolt, goes right there. Blade Ward. Only in emergencies. Because Blade Ward's interesting. Blade Ward. Here we go. Blade Ward. You extend your hand and trace a sigil of warding in the air. Until the end of your next turn, you have resistance against weapon attack damage. If someone's attacking you, you Blade Ward, congratulations. Based on the amount of health you have as a commoner, you're going from dying to a stab wound to surviving a stab wound. But that's it. That's all it does for you. It'll help you survive. For me, Shillelagh might be slightly better than Blade Ward because I use a cane to walk around. But for the general populace, I think Blade Ward before Shillelagh Makes the most sense. Light. Useful some days, but at the bottom of the category. How rare is it that you need to conjure light when you don't have your cell phone? These days, flashlights have dropped down in, purchases just because you can just buy one, put it on your keychain, or you have a flashlight which has one built in. Message. Now, message is neat. Gives you telepathic message that someone respond to within range, but it's going lower than you'd think, because how rarely do you need to telepathically communicate with someone instead of just text them? What kind of secret things are you doing that you need to have it messaged brain to brain? It's just, in the modern era, something like message, you don't really need it. Its range also isn't great. You have to be in the same room as that person still, basically. Message has a range of 120 feet. That's it. If it was full-blown telepathy, it'd be better. But it's not full-blown telepathy. It's one short message at a time to one person. And it takes 6 seconds to do it. They can respond back. But how often are you really going to need this? It's good. For sure, it's not rarely useful, but you're not going to use it very often. Lightning Lure. Lightning Lure, you can make the argument for that it's basically a grappling hook. I've seen some people argue this. Based on the wording of Lightning Lure, you create a lash of energy that strikes at one creature of your choice. They take the lightning damage only if they end within 5 feet of you. So if they're on, if you get some way to extend this range in D&D based, you can use it like a grappling hook. Outside of that, nah. It's a murder. It's worse than the ones you can get away with. It's less damage than that. It's worse than Shocking Grasp. I would argue it's also worse than Acid Splash. It'll go right there. Mind Sliver. Mind Sliver is also very low damage, but all it does is make them more likely to fail their next saving throw. So unlike Vicious Mockery, there's not a chance they won't die and it'll save your life. There's a chance they won't die and it won't matter, because you're not making them make saving throws. So, right there. Could be used non-lethally, but most of the time you're just going to kill them. Honestly. Ray of Frost. Right there. The reason Shocking Grasp is above Mind Sliver, Shocking Grasp in a time where you need to... Actually, we'll put Mind Sliver up here. Because it does technically not murder most of the time. But it's just also not very good. Sword Burst. Sword Burst is like the AoE around you, right? Of attack... yeah, it's the AoE around... no, it's not Shocking Grasp. Sword Burst, yeah. 5-foot radius of force damage. Actually, no. We'll put it right here. Because this hits multiple people. This is one target. But being able to hit a target from range to save your life is going to be better for melee. It's going down here. Booming Blade is better than Green Flame Blade because you're not going to randomly hit a civilian. Poison Spray. You know what? I'm going to put it even lower. Poison Spray, you do a puff of poison gas in someone's face. That's just a thing people do anyway. You can do if you're trying to murder someone anyways. You don't need magic for this one. You know, I'll even put it below Magic Stone. Because you can do this without magic. It's just aerosolized poison. It's a thing. Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy is interesting, but unfortunately not that useful. You can make your voice boom loudly. You can make fires flicker or change color. You can make the ground shake. You can make sounds like Minor Illusion. You can open or close doors. You can alter the appearance of your eyes. It's not in the emergencies category, but I'd argue it's up here with Minor Illusion. I'm going to put it slightly behind Minor Illusion because of its limitation of sound and eyes, versus Minor Illusion, you could, make drawings that only last for a minute. And that could be useful to, kind of convey to someone what you have in mind. So I see that usage for Minor Illusion, Also, Thaumaturgy, how often are you going to need to dramatically open doors? You know? I do like alter the appearance of your eyes, but you can also do that with Minor Illusion as well. Thaumaturgy has a couple uses that Minor Illusion doesn't have, but they're not useful in real life like Minor Illusions are. Chill Touch. Do. Put it right there. It's another murder one. Mold Earth. Mold Earth is not that great. It's like Shape Water, but just objectively worse. Because here's the text. You choose a portion of dirt or stone you see within range that fits within a 5-foot cube. You can excavate it, move it, or deposit it. You can change how it looks. You can make it harder to walk on. Or you can make harder terrain easier to walk on. That's it. It's not that great. You can affect small pieces of the ground at once. It's great if that's your job. So I'm going to put it in useful some days, below Gust, but above Shape Water. I'm surprised we're not having as many useful most days. But I do think we will be upgrading Minor Illusion up to, and Thaumaturgy up to useful most days. Because I do agree, I'm starting to think of more uses for these, that I'm going to put them at the bottom end of useful most days. Control Flames. This one is interesting, because this one could be life-saving. But how often are you going to be in the situation where you need to make flames bigger or instantly extinguish them? So Control Flames is going at the top of only in emergencies. Being able to instantly stop a fire is very useful. Of these emergency cantrips, is by far the best. Prestidigitation. Another very powerful spell in D&D. But how useful is it in real life when we really look at it? You can make a harmless sensory effect. That's good. Includes touch, like feeling a puff of wind, sound, like music, or smell. This already makes it better than Minor Illusion. Instantly snuff or light small fires. Instantly cleaner soil and object. That is so useful as an adult who is really bad at remembering to wash their clothes. Chill warmer flavor an object. Make your food taste better. Make a small object appear for an hour. Oh, so you mean this is a physical version. You make a small literal marker symbol appear on an object for an hour. Oh, what's this? Create a non-magical trinket or illusionary image that lasts until the end of your next turn. So it's just a better Minor Illusion, yeah? Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's just a better Minor Illusion by far. Prestidigitation goes up here. The big one is, I think I'm actually going to move it above Guidance. Because it's these. It's the instantly cleaner soil, chill warmer flavor, and the fact that you have even more sensory effect options. It affects all the senses here. And that's a huge upgrade. Word of Radiance is a bad cantrip. It goes right here. Word of Radiance, let me check how low is Word of Radiance's damage. I remember it's bad. Yeah, 1d6. So it's like not even enough to maybe keep them alive. Because more often than not, you're going to, average is 3. That's going to hurt. And it's not very good. Create Bonfire. How long does Create Bonfire last at its maximum? A minute? A minute of a bonfire. A 5-foot cube bonfire. That is incredibly hard. That's very rarely useful. Better than Friends? Or is it? No. How often am I needing to start a fire? Not very often. Resistance. You might think resistance is amazing, but think about it. When was the last time someone tried to tackle you? When was the last time someone tried to mind control you? When was the last time someone tried to charm person you? Or make you slip on ball bearings? Those are the things resistance applies to. Saving throws. So it's a worse Blade Ward, is what I'm telling you. It's worse. It's a worse Blade Ward. Thunderclap. It's I'll put it right there. I'm not worrying too much about the murder category. We just have the get away with murder, good at murder, bad at murder. Dancing Lights. Dancing Lights is a fun cantrip, but it's just not very good. You can make an illusion of a vaguely humanoid form of medium size that shows light. That's it. Other than that, it's just glowing lights. That's the bottom of rarely useful. Primal Savagery. Primal Savagery is weird because it makes your arm into like, cause your teeth or fingernails to sharpen, delivering a corrosive attack of melee damage. So you could leave a non-person looking mark on them, but if someone sees you doing this, they can still see you're murdering them. It's just like being a werewolf for a few seconds. So it's better than these. I think it goes right here. Because these are effective at killing. This is really effective at killing, and you might get away with it, but it's not as effective at... You know what? Yeah, right there. Between these. Like that. Spare the Dying. Only in emergencies, but top of the list. Being able to... Because, for reference, Spare the Dying's wording here is important to keep in mind. Spare the Dying specifies, you touch a living creature with 0 HP, they become stable. This means this person is in the process of dying, but not yet dead. You save their life. It's useful in emergencies. It's amazing. You could go to a hospital and cure a bunch of people. But again, that's still an emergency. That person is still dying. So I'm not going to put it up here because you are creating an emergency by going to a dead person or a dying person and reviving them. I think it's probably the most admirable choice to take, but it still goes in the only in emergencies category. Druid Craft. Druid Craft is a fun cantrip that I wish all druids just had, but it's not very good. You can create sensory effect that predicts the weather. Neat. You're a perfect meteorologist. You're also great at botany. You can make a flower blossom, seed pod open, or leaf bud bloom. You can create sensory effects, such as falling leaves, a puff of wind, the sound of a small animal, or faint odors of skunk. This one, unlike Prestidigitation, specifies it's small. This is like a small Prestidigitation that's nature-focused, is basically what Druid Craft exists for. We're going to put it in the... How often am I going to need to know the weather perfectly? Some days, but worse than Gust, and I'd say worse than Mold Earth, worse than Shape Water. Knowing the weather's not that useful, and being able to make those illusionary feelings... Let me see. Oh no, it does say Puff of Wind, which is what Gust is. So I guess it would go above Gust, right? By my logic, that it's just a better Gust? Even though you can't, like, eventually get to telekinesis with this. I think this might... Oh, you know what? Your garden would be on point forever. You know what? For that alone, yeah. Useful some days. Sacred Flame. Boo. True Strike. Better than you'd think, actually, because it makes your next attack roll better. There are times when using an attack roll isn't hurting somebody. Archery is attack rolls. You'd be an amazing archer. Boxing. Or pit target shooting. Things like that. It's going at above Dancing Lights, below Create Bonfire. Eldritch Blast. It's going right there. Above Firebolt, but it's still just murder. Sapping Sting. I'm putting Sapping Sting up here. It's very low damage, 1d4, and it knocks them prone, which knocks them flat on the ground. That gives you a chance to run, and that can save your life. Toll the Dead, it's actually not very good. It does a lot of damage, sure. Let me see if it specifies that it's clear that it's you using Toll the Dead, because that's been a biggie for these the murder cantrips. We'll get to Thorn Whip in a minute. You know what? You could totally get away with murder with this. Better than these. You point at them, and they die. Actually, no. It goes right there. It's like Frostbite where you direct it, and it might be obvious you direct it, but are they really going to believe that someone died from scary bells? Who knows? Encode Thoughts. Encode Thoughts is bad, but for one major reason. Let's read Encode Thoughts, shall we? I actually had a wizard with this spell, but it has a problem. You pull a memory, an idea, or a message from your hand and transform it into a tangible string of glowing energy called a thought strand, which persists for the duration or until you cast this again. Congrats, you can turn your thoughts into ideas. Neat. If you cast this spell while concentrating on a spell or ability that allows you to read the thoughts of others, you can transform their things into a strand. Here's the problem. Casting this spell allows you to receive whatever memory, idea, or message that the thought struck contains, but it only lasts for 8 hours. You're not getting any of these other spells, but you only have 8 hours to reread this memory. It sounds great, but you can only do it for 8 hours. Because it's persists for the duration or until you cast it again, so you can only have one. Lasts for a maximum of 8 hours. You would want to hold a memory for longer than that. So Encode Thoughts is going at the bottom of rarely useful. And Thorn Whip. People on TikTok were making jokes about Thorn Whip because of this. You create a long vine-like whip covered in thorns that lashes out. If it hits, they take 1d6 piercing damage and are pulled closer to you. Some people were like, you could use that for haha funny reasons. No, you can't. That's 1d6 piercing damage. A commoner in D&D. How much health do they have? A whopping 4. So you have a solid chance of just killing them instantly. Don't use Thorn Whip for those kind of things. Alright? There's safer ways for that. So it is going down in the murder category. We'll put it by lightning lore. It's just a better lightning lore. Also, yeah, spoilers on what the next podcast episode is. It's right up here. You can't see it. I cropped it out. Hey, I'm smart. So that's my tier list. The useful everyday, we had Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, and Guidance. Most days you can make use out of Mending, Minor Illusion, and Thaumaturgy. Some days you can make good use out of Druid Craft, Gust, Mold Earth, Shape Water, Message, and Light. Rarely you could find uses for Produce Flame, Friends, Create Bonfire, True Strike, Dancing Lights, and Encode Thoughts. Only for emergencies, I'd say Spare the Dying. I explained why that one's in this category. Control Flames, Blade Ward, Resistance, Shillelagh, Sapping Sting, Vicious Mockery, and Mind Sliver. Then, if you need to murder, your best choice is Infestation, because you could get away with it. Toll the Dead or Frostbite, you could maybe get away with it. If you're not worried about getting away with it, get Eldritch Blast, Firebolt, or Primal Savagery, depending on the kind of killing you need to do. And then there are the worst ones: Ray of Frost, Sword Burst, Chill Touch, Shocking Grasp, Acid Splash, Thunderclap, Sacred Flame, Thorn Whip, Lightning Lure, Word of Radiance, Magic Stone, Poison Spray, Booming Blade, and Green Flame Blade. I hope you enjoyed this tier list. Bye-bye! That's the end for YouTube, and the end for me today. I've been live for a while. I really wanted to do that. I thought that'd be a fun idea. I would edit that into a YouTube video. And I hope you guys had a great time watching the stream today. Bye-bye!